Welcome back, folks. This is our first week of shows. This is the big, beautiful bill. And I have a feeling that some of you might say, we've seen that. Well, you haven't seen this. Because when I do things, I get it from the unction from the Lord, and it's never, ever like what anybody else does. Everything that I've seen out there is they're diving into the bill, they're looking at it line item by line item, and they're telling you, it's going to affect this person and that person and this group and that group, and it's going to affect you this way in your income tax and so forth. That's not what this show's about. This show is about what I always do. It's about trying to give people the message that God has for them. And the big message goes way beyond just the big bill is. It goes to the very heart of the matter of what's God doing to do a reset. And what does this bill have to do with it? And what does Donald Trump's agenda have to do? And what is it that's going to allow this bill to help Donald Trump to achieve what he wants to do, which is to make America great and to trigger the financial reset? So the first half of this is going to be just laying foundation so that you can see the context of this bill. And then you'll see this very same slide that we start with over again halfway through. That's where we'll start to dig into the actual bill, but it will not be a line item by line item. It will be a vindication of what this bill is, why it's so important, and how it's going to positively affect all of America. So with that, we're going to go to the next slide and we're going to dig into details. So basically what you've got on this screen is it's telling you that contrary to what they say they're going to do, which is this bill is going to drive us into bankruptcy, it's going to create $5 trillion in debt. But what do you see right off the bat? You see that it's going to save $1.5 trillion. I mean, that's opposite of what they're telling you it's going to do. And it's going to change Medicare, not in a negative way, but in a positive way, because it's going to identify all those people that shouldn't be on it, all that money that they're taking from us feloniously. And then it's going to expand Trump-era tax cuts. So basically, we're talking about actually a giant program to basically get rid of the waste and the fraud and the abuse, and to basically help America prosper, not harm America. But so many of the people that I've seen do this are talking about, we're going to have all this debt that's going to accrue and so forth. We're going to debunk it all. Let's go to the next slide. When we go to the next slide, here's what we're going to see. We're going to see that it can really be netted down to the simple things you see on the screen. It's about all of Trump's plan: stimulate the economy, buy America, made in America, and tax cuts, all of which are the essence of what he's been saying ever since his first term. So basically, this is just an extension of what the man's doing. And think of what happened when he came in the first time. Basically, we had the greatest economic resurgence that we'd had in my lifetime. The stock market went from 20,000 to 30,000. That's nothing compared to what's going to happen as a result of this bill and the things that Trump is doing. So let's go to the next slide. And again, this is something you're not going to see in a presentation that's just about the new green bill. Here it is. This is the fatal flaw underpinning what? Not the bill, fiat currency. Every dollar printed creates a debt obligation, so that eventually the financial system does what? Collapses under a mountain of debt. Now I'm going to read this whole slide and we're going to talk about it. This is probably the most important slide in this whole presentation. This is the fatal error of what? Progressive tax system of communism. So what they've got this set up is income tax goes 100% to the Fed. That's the central banking system. Doesn't go for a school, doesn't go to a highway, doesn't go for anything to benefit the public. It goes to pay the interest on printing fiat currency that is absolutely backed by nothing. As the national debt increases over time, here's what happens. We basically no longer have enough money coming in through the illegal income tax, and so they have to add new taxes. And then we get to a point that as that debt goes up, and it's now $37.5 trillion, we reach a point where the federal income tax isn't enough. The new taxes they've added aren't enough. So now they have to raise the taxes on those other taxes. And what has the Democrats been wanting to do in the last several months? They want to keep him from extending those tax cuts from his first term. And they want to basically have raised taxes, the exact opposite of what you do when you want to stimulate an economy. Under this fiat Ponzi scheme, there can never be a debt ceiling. Never. I don't care what they say. And the debt can never be paid off because every dollar creates a debt. So let's go over to the far side. And here's the consequences. This one slide, I've seen people do a whole show to explain this. Debt increases, tax increase, then comes an economic collapse. Why? Because here's what's happened, and you can see it in your own lives, folks. Since 2020, when they did the lockdown on us, every nation in the world printed more money than they had printed in decades. And it drove the national debt up to where the public, GQ public, you and I, find that we can't buy groceries, we can't buy medicine, we can't handle, and guess what? They can't handle the national debt either. We're at the point that the entire system has to collapse in a catastrophic crash like happened in 1929 when basically we had a default. That's what's coming, folks. And don't blame it on Trump because it's been orchestrated by the global financial elite, and it was really triggered to cascade when they locked us down in 2020. That's what this is about. This is going to give us a way to have that collapse, but have a soft landing. Sharp V down, stock market collapses right back up again, and we have greater prosperity than we had before that happened. Now let's go to see what has to happen in order to set that foundation so that we are able to basically create that. The first thing that has to happen is deglobalization, and the second is de-dollarization. Now, what do I mean by that, and why is it important? It means that the global financial system has controlled us. They control all the necessities of life. They control your health care. They control your access to water. They control your access to food. They control your access to energy. They control you by controlling the 8 spheres of influence. They control the education system, the media, the banks, the corporations, everything. We have to take that control away from them. And the best way to do that is to deglobalize. Here's where your money comes from, and you need to understand the genesis of money and what's changing as a result of this bill. So basically, to create an economic system, you start with natural resources. Then you refine those natural resources into finished goods, and then you sell them. And that creates money. And that money is what's used to run a government, either for good purposes or for bad purposes. That's what's happening. But they have too many places where they can control the supply chain, where they can create shortages and drive up prices, where they can manipulate us. Think about what happened during the lockdown. It took you a year to get a cell phone. It took you a year to get a delivery on a car. Why? Because it was little thing called a microchip that they couldn't get their hands on and put in those cars and put in those cell phones. That's going to go away because let's take the cell phone. Basically, Foxconn is where the iPhone is made. It's the largest single manufacturing facility in the world. 100,000 people in one factory. It's being broken up and sent to 5 countries. That's happening all over. And so basically what's happening is manufacturing is leaving China by droves. And they said by the end of the year, it'll probably be to a situation where the manufacturing is down by 95%. So where's it going? It's going, first of all, to the nations that are in proximity to China. It's going over to Vietnam. It's going over to India. It's going over to Singapore. It's going to Japan. It's going to Taiwan. But the really sophisticated stuff, good news, it's coming to America. And that's where the real money's at, is in the sophisticated high-tech stuff that's going to basically fuel the next industrial revolution. And I remind you, we were the ones who made the first industrial revolution. We basically were being controlled by the global financial elite, which is really in essence what we're talking about here. And we had a war, we called this Civil War, and we went bankrupt. And then we said, enough of this. We want to get our financial system back in our hands. And what we did is he said, Britain, we're not going to buy from you anymore. And people went freaky, just like the other. They said, what, the prices are going to go up. Yep. And they did for a little while. But then what happened? Necessity is the mother of invention. And what we did is we started innovating, and we innovated the Transcontinental Railroad, which we shared with the world. And we innovated the automobile and the telephone and the assembly line. And pretty soon, 34 years later, America is the wealthiest nation in the world. Well, what you saw there is nothing compared to what's going to be coming as a result of deglobalization and de-dollarization. So the world is going to be free from being able to be controlled by China or any other single nation through manufactured goods. And it's going to be freed from being able to be controlled by the dollar as the sole reserve currency. When we come out of this, every nation will be on a commodity-backed system, which means it will have sovereign currencies that they can trade in. But one nation, if this all works the way Donald Trump intends it and God's intends it, will still be the dominant currency. And we need to have that power in order to be able to do what we need to do to gin up what? The next industrial revolution, the industrial revolution of all industrial revolutions. That's what's behind this bill, folks. That's what we're talking about. Now, let's go to the next slide. And what we're going to see is Donald Trump truly a chess master? Well, I don't know about that, but I know he's got one heck of a strategic mind, and he's got a lot of really smart people helping him. So here's how Donald Trump is going to avoid what happened the last time that the world make a shift like this. The last time the world happened is basically the dollar, the control of the world's reserve currency was taken away from Britain. And what happened? They had a 10-year catastrophic depression. This is not going to happen this time. Donald Trump is queuing up our manufacturing ahead of time. And remember, that's the genesis of wealth. That's what's going to restore America financially, and then we will help other nations to restore. But here's where that sharp V down and back up again comes in. This is the genius behind what Donald Trump is doing to say, first America, give us financial prosperity so that we can then help the rest of the world. So I'm going to go through this almost line item by line item slowly. We're going to traverse the Great Reset and emerge as the world's not sole reserve currency, but dominant reserve currency. What's he want to do? He wants to come out of this, and BRICS is going to do their magic, and countries are going to have their own sovereign currency, and it's all going to be backed by gold. We're going to back our currency by gold too at the last minute. So we'll come in with a commodity-backed system, but we're also going to take over the crypto market and the high-tech market. And so basically, he's going to dominate trade so that hopefully 61% of all trade in the world is still denominated in US dollars. That gives us a limited amount of leverage as the leading superpower of the world. What happens next? Establish Bitcoin strategic reserve and stable coins backed by what? The dollar. That gives us stability. So the stable coins, Bitcoin is to basically be, let's call it a bank, so that we're no longer controlled by the central banking system, where every dollar we print is a liability, where we have to pay interest to them, and interest at a very high rate. We're going to be borrowing from ourselves. We're going to be our own bank. And when you do that, you have what they call a collateralized debt obligation. And that means when we borrow from ourselves, we're going to be kind to ourselves. We're going to pay a lower interest rate. So we're getting control of our whole economic system, step by step, piece by piece. And then we have what? We have legislation coming out that circles around the platform for what we have to have this new commodity-backed system, and that's crypto, that's quantum computing, that's AI, that's XRP and XLM and crypto. And basically, he's said what? America's going to be the crypto capital of the world. We're minting 60% of all of our mining, 60% of all the Bitcoin. We're in control, and he's saying, God willing, if I can get the administration to work with me, we're going to basically create a situation where if you as an American citizen buy cryptocurrency and it's from a U.S. firm, you're not going to pay capital gains. I mean, the man is saying we are going to be the crypto capital of the world, and crypto is going to be what drives the world going forward. And let's break this down one more little piece. So he's saying Bitcoin is going to be a strategic reserve. Well, we've been talking, those who've been following me on other platforms, about something very important. The Bible says that God has stored up the wealth of the wicked for the righteous. And is it happening? There was a show called The Greatest Show on Earth that came out about 2 years ago, 3 parts. I encourage you to go find it on either Rumble or YouTube. They just came out with the third and final piece of it. But what it basically says is he went around the world and showed all the world leaders, we've got you. We know what you've done. We know the things that you've done wrong. And they capitulated. So where did he get all that Bitcoin? That was taken under Executive Order 1831. That basically says if you're involved in criminality and trafficking and drugs and whatever, then we can take your money and confiscate it. That's where the very foundation for changing the economic system and restoring America economically came from. We took it from the wicked and gave it to the righteous. Let's go on down. All banks to offer dollar-backed digital assets in a regulated, secure manner. So we've had out there all this time that for 4 or 5 years now, that SEC lawsuit against XRP, that's going away. And as that goes away, then basically that's the last step where we can start to transition into this new system, because now we'll be able to do what they call staking of cryptocurrency, and it'll just be, you'll be able to be your own bank, just like the United States is going to be able to be its own sovereign bank and not from under the central banking system. So that is the genius behind what Trump is doing to allow that financial collapse to happen, because we have to take the money away from the wicked. So what does it say? It says, he who controls money controls the world. Well, I'm going to take it a step further. He who controls manufacturing is then turned into money, and the money is then used to run the world. And we are going to become, once again, the number one superpower in the world, and we're going to replace China and gain back our position as we had before as the number one manufacturing city in the world. End of story. Quick decline, quick rise, stability. And it's all based upon what Donald Trump is doing with this bill. Now, if we go to the next slide, I'm going to break this down layer by layer for you. The cause of the U.S. debt crisis. It's maniacal what they've done. It starts with intentionally losing trade. It starts with war. It starts with buying politicians. And Doge over there basically is say, what do they say? Follow the money, find the crooks. That's what Doge was about. It got some fraud and abuse, but it was really about getting into the systems and getting the trail set up to find out who did it. And then you've got perpetual war. And then look at the 10 to 20 million people that we've been into this country since COVID, and they're by and large poor, and we're supporting them. We're giving them untold numbers of entitlements. And it was Benjamin Franklin who first said, once the people least willing or least able to work find out that they can take money from the treasury, it's just a matter of time until the country collapses in on itself. So where are we today? We're where the national debt is $37 trillion. $9 trillion is due to be refinanced this year, and enter Donald Trump again. And Donald Trump is doing everything he can do to do what? Through what I've just described to you. He is going to take us from the Internal Revenue Service, meaning the central banking system, meaning the Fed, to an external system based on what? Based on revenue from tariffs and from other things that he's doing. And we'll basically be out of the slave system, and we'll be able to create a new system, a godly system based on commodities, based upon anything that you can think of that God put on this earth, based on all your agricultural goods, all your minerals, all your technology. Everything has value, and it can't be manipulated like a fiat currency that's based on nothing can be manipulated. All right, I'm going to go to the next slide. I'm going to show you where illegal immigration has to do with this. I mean, I don't think people really understand this. Illegal immigration comes at us in a multitude of ways. This is just one way. I'm going to do a show in the next week or so that'll show you they are gearing up to create a situation where by 2030, they will be in a position, if we don't stop them, where it will be virtually impossible for any Democrat to be elected in the United States of America. I mean, any Republican. We will have basically lost our freedom as a free society. So here's what's going on with this illegal immigration. 10, depending on who you talk to 20 million people have come in. Well, what happens? Have we ever had anything like this before? Only once. We basically opened up our doors. We're the nation that was built on immigration because we had to build our infrastructure, build our factories, and so forth and so on. Well, by 1924, we had our infrastructure built. And we said from 1924 to 1965, there was not even any illegal immigration. And why did we do that? Because there were so many people coming in that they couldn't be assimilated. And because what? Most of those people were poor, and they were driving America into debt. So we're right back where we were. We're back to the debt issue. We have to get out from under debt, and we have to have a sovereign currency backed by gold and silver. And illegal immigration is nothing but a Trojan horse designed to collapse America from the inside. Let's go to the next slide, and we'll do a little more on illegal immigration. A nation without borders literally has no nation to be sovereign over. And a nation that has no sovereign currency also has no sovereignty. So they're basically using illegal immigration to destroy America from within. They're open borders with 20 million people coming in. They're drug trafficking to create instability within the nation, and human trafficking. It's a national security issue. Crime is up like you can't believe. So what did they say? I believe it was Joseph Stalin. This is probably not an exact quote because it's off the top of my head. He said that America's principal foundation is its patriotism, its Christianity, and its morality. If we can undermine those things, America will fall from within. So look at what the media has done. Look at the smut that Disney puts out. Look at the porn that's on your computer. Look at the gay rights movement that's being forced upon us. That's all targeted to collapsing us from within. And you may not think any of this has anything to do with the great big beautiful bill, but it's all laced around that bill. That bill gives us the ability to have financial stability, to come out of a near depression, so we can rebuild our infrastructure, so we can take back our schools, so we can take back our corporations, we can get the lying media out, and the money flows over to what? God's children, and we buy the media corporations, and we oust the politicians, and we oust the CEOs, and God's kingdom is restored, and he uses money to do it. The money that was stored up for the wicked, by the wicked for the righteous, is given to us to reestablish what he intended America to be in the first place. We are God's chosen nation, and he's going to restore us, and we're going to restore the rest of the world, and then we're going to have the greatest revival the world has ever seen. I'm going to, on the next slide, I'm going to dig down, and I'm going to show you where the debt really comes from. So in this instance, this started before Clinton. It started with Carter, and they basically, he signed it, Clinton signed it, and it's called NAFTA. And I want to take you to the next slide. And they're saying, oh my goodness gracious, Trump might add $5 trillion to the national debt. I say, liar, liar. Let's look at it. Here's what's happening. So we're going to go back, and we're going to go back to when Carter was president, and we're going to go back to before NAFTA was created, and we were 200 years old. And we had accumulated, whopping debt, $660 billion, not even $1 trillion in over 200 years. And then also what happened. Now we're at $37.5 trillion in basically 50 years. And from when Carter signed that bill, or the equivalent bill signed by Clinton, we had a $997 billion debt. Look what happened when Reagan came in. When he left office, it was 2.6. And then when Bush left office, it was 4.1. And then when Clinton left office, it was 5.6. And then, bam, what happens? Remember, nations are collapsed by war. They take you into a war to control you. They bankrupt you. They set up a central bank, and they use the money, the massive money that they get from your taxes, to basically enslave you. So look at that point right there, where when we go from Clinton to Bush, the debt goes from 5 trillion to 10 trillion, 10.7. And then when we go from Bush to Obama, we go to 19.5. What was happening during that period of time? That was 9/11. That was the war that Bush stood up and said, we're going to have a generation of war lasting 30 years or more. That was an intentional war designed to bleed America out. What does Donald Trump do? Goes into Iran, bing in, bing out, surgical strike, nuclear power plants destroyed, mission accomplished, sues for war. See the difference? One is designed to restore America, and the other is designed to bleed America out. So with that, maybe I need to go back to something that we talked about a little earlier, and that is that, oh my goodness, what's going to happen to, I just think I lost my thought, I did, so we'll go on. Maybe I'll come back to me in a minute. Let's go to the next slide, and we'll break this down a little more. So what's Trump doing? Trump is saying, hey, folks, I want to get out from under what you saw back there. So in his first term, he signed a new trade agreement, the American AMCA. And then he came back and he said in his second term, well, that was great and that helped, but we're still at a disadvantage. So we need to be in a situation where that trade is not bleeding us out to where we're making a little money, and the people on the other side are making money, where it's fair, equitable, reciprocal trade. So let's look at this graph and see what happens. By and large, we were paying twice as much on tariffs as any of the partners that we were dealing with. China, we were paying 67% tariffs on average. They were only paying 34. Taiwan, 64. Us, 32. And then us 64 and Taiwan, 32. Now let's go on down. I just said that backwards. India, tariffs on U.S. goods were 52%, and the U.S. 20. When I lost my place. Anyway, let's go down to the bottom. Vietnam, they were charging us 90%. We were charging 46. So all Trump is trying to do is get that to where there's a level playing field, where everybody's trading fair, nobody's gouging anybody, America's not being raped, and we have an opportunity to basically regain financial stability. Oh, I know what I was going to say a minute ago. So now we're in this $37.5 trillion national debt, and look at what Trump's doing. He's threatening to get rid of the Fed. He's saying we're going to go from an external financial system to an external system, and he's basically pushing to create the momentum to force the Fed to lower interest rates. Why is he doing that? Because this year, $9 trillion of that $37 trillion is up for basically being readjusted. And so basically, he's going to force the lowering of the interest rates so that we don't go bankrupt. We have to pay the new interest rates that are on the table right now, it'll collapse America, period. So it's more of that genius that he's implementing to create a soft landing for America and parity for the world. Let's go on down. And this takes us to another component that we need to understand. Here, what we're looking at is there's a war going on, and that's on two fronts here. It's on who's going to control trade, and we're winning that war. China is absolutely in dire financial straits. And there's the other side of the war is the technical war. And basically, I believe we're positioned to win. Trump has put some checkmate moves on China that I think are going to work. But going forward, he who controls technology in this instance is going to be the leader of the world. So America has to come out and rebuild its manufacturing. But along with it, we have to be the dominant technological country in the world, because manufacturing in the future is not going to be manual like it was. It's going to be technological. It's going to be based on quantum computers, on robots, on AI, on nanotechnology. We have to win both of these wars, and what Trump is doing is enabling us to come out of this not as the sole reserve currency, not as the dominant, the absolutely super dominant force of the world, but as that force that has just enough edge to bring the world into a period of peace and prosperity where everybody is functioning at relative parity. Let's go on to the next thing, and this is one of the biggest lies you'll ever see in your life. They're telling us in the Agenda 2050, by 2050, all these things are going to be fixed, every one of them. This is basically they're saying we're going to clean the water up. The oceans have never been dirtier. There's full of microplastics that are killing the marine life like you can't believe. And then those nanoplastics particles are what? They become the nucleus for the water that's pulled up out of the ocean. It comes down as a rain, and it's coming into our bodies. And I heard a statistic the other day that your brain probably contains about 0.5% plastic, 0.5% plastic. So plastic is getting into the oceans and killing the marine life and getting into us. And there are easy fixes for that. I've done a show on it, and I'll do another. Let's go on down in the lower left, and responsible consumption. So they're saying this whole $93 trillion new Green Deal is to give us responsible consumption. And yet, what do they give us as an economic system? They give us an economic system that says we have planned obsolescence. Every 6 months, every year and a half, whatever we're dealing with, it's obsolete, and you got to buy another one. You can't fix it. You can't repair it. It's not modular. But what we're going to do to go to, under what Trump is doing with the manufacturing, we're going to go to products that are made to last a lifetime, the products that are modular, to products that can be repaired easily. And what's that going to do? That's going to take a mountain of stress out from under the ecology of the planet. It's going to help us clean our oceans and our lakes and our rivers. We're going to be doing less polluting. And then you add free energy on top of that so that we're not belching out carbon. And then we clean up the nanoparticles, and look at what we've done. None of that. Go up to the top center. is possible without virtually free energy. And so what did Trump do before he left office? He saw to it that the Chevron decision was reached. And what was that all about? That was all about one of the slavery systems that we were living under, where basically some 6,000 patents that were initiated, most of them during the turn of the century, never made it to market, because what happened is the corporations came in and said, oh, governments, you can't have that patent or that patent because it's a threat to national security. So they were shelved. It was never a threat to national security. What was it? It was a threat to the multi-trillion-dollar revenue stream of the global financial elite that control us. It was basically taking money from the grid, from oil, from natural gas, from their biggest revenue stream they had, and threatening them. And so they said, you can't have it. You can't have it. Well, Donald Trump has put legislation in place that says we will get it. We will get access to those technologies. And it's going to be based on hydrogen on demand. It's going to be based on magnets, and it's going to be based on free energy from the atmosphere. And we're going to see the greatest technological revolution the world has ever seen. And I want to stop here. Looking at this, every one of these things can be fixed if we have control of the money, and we can therefore get control of what? The schools. Look at one of the things, gender equality they're saying they're going to give us. We got to get a hold of the schools. So what was one of the first things Trump did? He got rid of the federal education department so we could give control back to the parents and determine how their children were educated. All we got to do is get the technology and get the money, and we can take back our system, and we can get out of that $93 trillion national apocalypse that they were trying to impose on us. And basically Trump has said he's going to do that, and he's going to give us free energy, or virtually free energy. So I've talked about this before, but I got a lot of new people on here, so I'm going to break this down. My son is in logistics. God's had me every place I need to be to learn what I need to learn, and it may come as a surprise to you that every retail item you buy and have ever bought and ever will buy, the principal cost of it is energy. It is the biggest slavery control mechanism in the world. And so when we get virtually free energy, because we ship things all over the world, because our manufacturing plants are run on coal, our ships and trucks are run on oil, and our homes are run with natural gas, etc., that all is energy. And basically, depending on the complexity of the supply chain, those products cost 30, 40, 50, 60, in some instances as much as 70% more than they will cost once we get out from under the carbon footprint that we've been locked into in order to allow the global financial elite to control us. So Trump is also implementing all of that. And none of this is happening unless he gets his new, great, big, beautiful bill that accommodates all these things. So that whole debacle you see there that are nothing but control mechanisms listed down below. And they claim that what are they doing? Partnerships for the goals. No, they're not. They pass regulations over and over and over again to stop us from doing any of these things. All of this is going to be fixed because of the things that are in the big, beautiful bill. I know I sound like I'm ranting, but I think I'm here at a time when the world is at a tipping point, and people have to wake up, and they have to know what's going on, and they have to stand up, and we have to do what we have to take our country back. And what is our country? Are we a democracy? You bet your bippy we're not a democracy. Our founding fathers said that democracy was mobocracy. And what is that? That is going back to what Franklin said, when Benjamin Franklin said, the minute that those least willing are able to work and get control of the coffers of the money, it's just a matter of time until we collapse. So what is a republic? A lot of people don't even know what a republic is, but we're going to get it through this bill and through the education programs that Trump is going to initiate. He's going to be laying that out for us in his 2050 tour of America to all 50 states, and the things that he's doing in subsequent bills. And so here's what it is. A republic is a government of the people, by the people, for the people. And it has requirements. It says that you have to be educated. You have to be informed. It means you have to know the truth, not the lies coming from the media. And when you go to vote, as an educated person, as a moral person, as a Christian person, as a patriotic American, you need to vote your conscience and not vote for who's going to give you the most handouts, but vote for what's going to, in the long run, be in the best interest of humanity, of this nation, of every nation in the world, and of the planet. Because if we kill the planet, we kill ourselves. So now, what is the principal requisite for any of this to happen? We have to go back to where they started and into wars, because the wars are the genesis for the money, which is the genesis for all the control mechanisms. So Trump is out there. He's gone to the Congo and negotiated the deal and trying to give a genocide that's happening in the Congo and tamp it down. He's over trying to end the Russia-Ukraine war. He's over saying you will not get a nuke Iran, but at the same time, he's not doing what has been done in the past and having a generational war. He came in, and you guys may notice that's an actor that you see there, and that's from a movie. And what I see in the little graphic that I created is Ali Khamenei. Understand, all we want to do is keep you from getting a nuclear bomb. We're not against Iran. We're not against the Iranian people. So now that we've taken that away, why don't you sue for peace? Why don't we create peace in the Middle East? And guess what that does that relates to this bill? That creates the peaceful foundation that allows the refinancing of the dinar and of the dong, which is something we're going to be talking about, because that's all also laid into all of this. So can you see what basically we're doing? We're laying infrastructure, a foundation to absorb a financial collapse, rebound from it quickly, and get out from under the slavery system where every dollar that's created is a debt, and go to God's financial system where freedom reigns. And now finally, we're on the slide that says now we're getting into the new green, away from all of this stuff, and we're getting into the new beautiful bill. All right, Trump's common sense policies. Here it is. The keys to saving the U.S. from collapse, and along with that, the world. Reciprocal trade agreements. So that means fair trade agreements. That means the new trade tariffs that he's done. That means everything that he's done so that everybody makes a little money. It's just fair. Sovereign borders. Close our borders. A nation with no border is not sovereign in any way. Sovereign currency. A nation that does not control its own currency does not control its destiny. Energy independence. A nation that doesn't have energy that's as cheap as possible is a slave of the people who control the energy. Built in America. Remember, the manufacturing is what creates the wealth that is what is used to run the nation. So if America is building its own products and buying its own products and has both a domestic market and an international market, then we are in a position to be in a position where we're financially sound and we're not controlled by anybody. Buy American-made products. Build it in America, buy it. And we're saying to those people in other countries, you want those tariffs? It's real simple. Just come over here, build your factory over here, and you won't have any tariffs to pay, and we'll give you some of the cheapest taxes in the world. Reduce waste and fraud. So as we bring these new manufacturing facilities up, they're not going to be based on planned obsolescence. They're going to be based on building products that last for as long as humanly possible. And then reduce the size of government, and that's what he's been doing right and left, is basically saying power back to the states, take away all the fraud that we find, and basically create an honest economy. And power back to the states and local government. And then over the other side, our vision is one of what? This is God's vision: peace, security, and prosperity. When all nations have a relatively stable economy, and when the wars are gone, the things that can happen are unbelievable. Life as we know it will change when this comes through. Let's go to the next slide, and we're going to ask you a question. Do you think the left, that I believe is controlled by the global financial elite, see what Trump's doing? And if they do, and it's to help America, well, then you have to ask yourself a question. Why does everything they do seem to be to block it? Let's look at what they've done. No plans to make America better, only plans to obstruct Trump. So let's look at some tangible things. Schumer boasts that Democrats have appointed, are you ready? 235 liberal judges to obstruct Trump's plans. So Trump has said all along in regards to election fraud, we got it all. We can prove that not only Trump's election, but elections going back 100 years have been stolen. And not only elections in the United States, but elections in over 70 countries have been stolen, meaning that the whole freedom of the world has been absconded with. We're going to get that out. What's going to happen very soon is we're going to have whistleblowers come out. It's all tied to this financial bill. As the financial bill changes everything, the time to release that is here. Now, what else do we see here? Democrats have filed over 165 lawsuits to obstruct Trump. So basically, there they are. You're seeing them for what they are. They're obstructionists who want to keep us locked into the current system, the current debt system. And what Trump is doing in this big, beautiful bill is a genius plan to allow a financial collapse. He's not causing it, he's allowing it so that we can get out from under the slave system when they were in, and we can have a system that brings peace and prosperity to the world. Let's go on down and we're going to start digging into the lies that they're telling you about this bill. They're basically saying to you, I'm going to the next slide here, folks. I'm having trouble again. All right, there we go. The hysteria that they're claiming is, oh my goodness gracious, you are going to collapse Medicaid. Nope, far from it. Everything he's doing is going to make Medicaid able to be stronger than ever, because what's he doing? He's saying, oh, well, we ought to basically make sure that the people who are applying for Medicaid and getting those are people who should rightfully get it. So what he's saying is real simple. If you're able-bodied, you need to check in with us every once in a while and show us that you either are working at least 20 hours a week, doing some kind of service for 20 hours a week, or looking for a job. And if not, then you're off the rolls. I mean, that seems fair and equitable to me. So basically, he's just income verification or verification that you're not a dead load. And he's basically taking Medicaid away from those 10 to 20 million people who came in. Look at the drain that's created on Medicare. He's preserving Medicaid, not harming Medicaid. So there's the lie that they're propagating. Let's go to the next slide. And this is, got a number of things in it. The primary cause of deficit spending. Oh, it's going to be that bill. It's going to be $5 million, which is half of what Bush and Obama brought to the table. But here's what the real truth is. There's the causes of the $37 trillion debt we have. It's war. Starts off with perpetual war that lasts for generations on purpose, that drags out and bleeds America into debt. So the two principal causes of our debt are war and unfair trade. So basically, get rid of the war. That's what Trump is trying to do. And the gutting of our manufacturing, that's basically part of the bleed we have. So he's going to rebuild our manufacturing, intentionally looting trade. He's going to fix that. Energy dependency, he's going to fix that. That's one of the biggest control mechanisms in the world. It controls all the necessities of life. Price gouging by the pharmaceutical companies, he's going to reduce those so that that's going to benefit primarily the senior citizens. Preloading of military spending, that relates to what he did in both his first and second term, where he went to NATO and said, as part of his capitulation tour, hey, pay your fair share. Pay the 2% you promised you'd pay for your military support. And now he bombs Iran and takes the threat of nuclear war off the table. And he says, now, America is spending far too much money on military. You're building gleaming cities, and we've got our navies out around protecting you, not paying your fair share. And yeah, it's now 5%, and all the nations except Spain did it. Are you running a math calculator? This is not costing us money. It's bringing in trillions of dollars into us. Waste, fraud, and abuse. So there's where Doge comes in. All of this is designed to give us a fair and equitable economy, to get rid of all of those in our government and our media and our schools that are basically our enemies, and create the system that we were intended to have, a republic, not a democracy, not a mobocracy, not communism, not socialism, but a republic, a unique form of government of the people, by the people, for the people. Let's go on down. And I'm breaking this down for you as finitely as I can. Revenue streams that offset spending. So basically, it's not going to be that they're going to get $5 trillion or more debt. We're going to offset it. So right off the bat, I'm going to erase their claim. So we have had pledges that have come in. So look at what happened when China became the superpower of the world in terms of manufacturing. Basically, they were telling all of you who invest in the stock market and you didn't realize what you were doing, hey, you want to invest in high growth stocks. That means you want to invest in communist China, and your money flowed over to communist China, and they built those gleaming new factories and the gleaming new cities. And guess where they got all that technology? They stole it from us because they had a policy that says, you want to come into China and put your factory here and get advantage of our cheap labor, you have to give us your intellectual property. So now what's happening? It's coming the exact opposite direction with what Trump is doing. And Trump is saying, you want to get out from under the tariffs? Come to America. You want to have some of the cheapest taxes in the world? Come to America. And all of a sudden, $10 trillion in pledges to build factories have come in. And so the way I do my math, we're $5 trillion ahead right off the bat. And so basically another lie exposed. We're going into the positive, not the negative direction. And massive increase in GDP will follow. So as we have fair, equitable trading and we have all of our manufacturing that was gutted from us back here again, that's the engine that creates the money that runs the economy. So basically, instead of running with an engine that's barely making it, we're running on 8 cylinders or running on supercharged power. So that's what's happening. And all of this is positive, and it's coming out of what Trump's policies are doing combined with his great, big, beautiful bill. Revitalize the automobile industry. So what did he do? China was all set. Everybody understands, all the governments, that one of the biggest industries in the world is automobiles. And so China was building in Mexico, which is in some ways not our friend. They were building the largest auto manufacturing plant in the world. Except, do what you want to do, build it. I don't care. But I'm going to charge you 200% tariff and you'll never sell a car in America. And all of a sudden, bingo, they stopped building that factory. That's where we have to maintain a certain degree of leverage. Then abandonment of the $93 trillion Green Deal for free energy, another major contribution to the stability of the United States. Then he just got passed in this bill tax cuts to stimulate the economy. That was $1.5 trillion to go to the 10 trillion up above. And then he got his previous tax cuts renewed. And so basically, what were the Democrats doing? They were saying, oh, we're running deficits. We need to increase the taxes. And so then we go down, currency revaluations are going to happen as a result of what he's doing. We're going to have that collapse that we have to have. But basically, what's going to happen is it's going to affect you in a positive way you can't even believe. Because back when I'm not a spring chicken anymore. Back when I was a kid, I was around when the 73 oil embargo hit, and all of a sudden oil became a very expensive. I can remember buying gasoline for my car at 19 cents. And at some places it's $7 or more. So basically, you hopefully can see that energy is a very huge control mechanism. And basically, we're going to get out from under that. And all of a sudden, what happens is over time, because we in 1971 went off the gold standard, which is what we're going to go back onto, then we run a fiat system that can be controlled and manipulated, and the dollar's gone from being worth $1 to being worth 3 cents. So here's what's going to happen. This is monumental, folks. We're not gonna pay as much for the goods that we buy because we're going to get free energy, but also take a house. The house that you had in 2000 that might have cost $200,000 is now $400,000 or $500,000. That's not because the house is worth more. It's because the dollar is only worth 3 cents now. When I was a kid, we used to have something called a mill. It was 1/10 of a penny. And now we're not even going to have the penny. We're getting rid of the penny. Why? Because the dollar is not worth anything. But when we go back on a gold-backed system, the dollar will be worth $1. And here's what's going to happen. It's going to shock you. But basically, that $400,000 house might sell for $40,000 or less. And you'll panic. But what you don't realize is your buying power is compensated for that, and your standard of living is much better because the cost of everything, the cost of energy, the cost of pharmaceuticals, the cost of your automobile, cost of your food is all going to go down dramatically. And so we're not going to have to work 2 jobs or 3 jobs or 40 hours or 60 hours a week, but we'll be able to basically feed our family, just like the family that lived next to me when I was a kid, a Catholic family that had 6 kids, and only the father worked, and they lived in a nice house and had 2 cars parked in the garage. That's what we're going back to. We're going back to the glory days of America following World War II. And the currency revaluation will add trillions of dollars to the economy of the United States. So here's what's going to happen. We created the wars that bankrupt these nations. And when we did, we basically bought up large amounts of their currency. So when this reset happens and this bill kicks into full play, the all of the superpowers of the world have vast amounts of all these currencies that are going to be revalued. And what are they going to do? They're going to turn them in. And it's going to bring trillions of dollars into the coffers. And that's just one more way Donald Trump is going to pay down our $37 trillion debt and try to keep the promise that he made of getting us from a internal revenue service under the Fed, the debt system, to an external system based on commodities, the freedom system that God wants us to have. And so I hope you can see that everything they've told you about this bill, everything they've told you about our economy, everything you hear on the news is all lies and deception. Let's go to the next slide, and I'll just validate one of the things that I said. So J.G. Ping said, go ahead, America. Go ahead, Trump. Do what you're going to do. It's going to backfire you. All the nations of the world are going to abandon you, and they're going to rally around China. 150 nations says, okay, Trump, we're coming to the table. We'll negotiate with you. And then just what happened when Carter was in is happening in reverse now. Those nations are saying, well, I think the future's in America. I think we need to build our factories in America and get out from under the tariffs and basically have some of the lowest taxes in the world. And so we're coming to America. And so what you see is just the first ribs and drabs of the commitments to build in America. Now it's up to $10 trillion that's committed. I mean, the metamorphosis of America back to being the leading superpower of the world is happening before your face. And the things that are in this bill are quintessential to having that happen. When we go to the next slide, we're going to talk about this. There's always a foreshadow. We're going back to the 1950s, when everything you heard on every television in America was built in America, by America, America pride, the American flag, and we believed in ourselves as a nation, and we were moral and upright people, and that's all coming back. And it starts with building manufacturing, when basically giving integrity back to the people and back to our nation, and standing up and saying we are proud Americans, and basically holding up that flag and having pride in what we do, and taking control of our children's educations, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So we're going to reinstate something that I bet most of you have never even heard of. It's called the American economic system. And it's the economic system that we invented following the Civil War, coming out of a catastrophic financial collapse, when we said we're going to innovate the Industrial Revolution. And it was said of it here. I was the only system ever devised, the tendency of which, listen to this, was that of equalizing and elevating the condition of man throughout the world. That's what this bill is going to do, folks. Equalize and elevate the condition of mankind throughout the world. And what the former general and then current president of the United States, Dwight Eisenhower, had to say on this subject. He said, is there any man, any woman, any child who doesn't understand that the principal cause of war is inequity between nations? So we're going to fix it. It's all in this bill. It's all about Trump's agenda. This is what he needs to have in place to keep his promise to make America great again, to make America greater than ever, and to put us in a position where, as he said, you're going to be tired of winning. So let's go on, and we're just about done. It starts to wrap up when you see rebuild American manufacturing. And to do that, it goes back to something that he did in his first administration, and he's going to do again, is he's getting rid of all of those regulations that make it take 5 years to be able to build a factory, or to build a highway, or to build a dam, or to build a power plant. And he's saying, you give $1 billion to America in the form of a factory, and we'll see to it that all the red tape is cut, all the regulations are stripped, and you can start building your factory in 90 days. Build America. Come to America, build America, and allow America to be prosperous and help the rest of the world to be prosperous and bring peace and prosperity to the world. So let's go to the next slide. And what we're going to see is, there's people out there my age who are afraid of crypto. We want currency. So what do we got? We got currency, a rainbow currency, an actual physical currency. Well, what people don't understand is it really doesn't mean much, because already today, we're on a digital system. We just don't realize it. Probably 98% of all the money spent on any given day is digital. very little currency is actually used anymore. When you go to the store, you use a debit card or your credit card, but now everything's going to go to gold, and that's a system that can't be controlled and can't be manipulated. But now we got a problem. We need certain technologies, because you're not going to go to the grocery store and take a gold coin worth $3,000 and buy a loaf of bread. So you have to have a technology that can fractionalize that down to a penny if you need to be, so that you can converse commerce throughout the world. That's where we move to quantum computing. That's where we move to AI. That's where we move to robotics. And that's where the energy demands on the world double or triple. And all of a sudden, anybody for the last 100 years who tried to implement a gold-backed system was killed. They were obstructed. They had to keep control of the world with the fiat system. But now, going into the technological revolution, we have to double or triple our energy output, and we cannot do with fossil fuels. So we're going to release all of those suppressed patents, and that is going to lead to a renaissance in the world. It's going to help us clean up the planet. It's going to see to it that we have all the water that we need to grow our food, that there's no hunger in the world, and that all those things that they were promising in the 2050 agenda are going to be real and executable, because they're all going to be done based around the golden bullet that we have called free energy, or virtually free energy, and then all the things that are in this bill. So for those of you who don't know what XRP is and don't know what Stellar is, XLM, I'm going to tell you a little story. So basically, what I want you to understand is that we're going through a complete economic shift. The definition of money is going to change. You're not going to be dependent on dollars anymore. We're going to still have paper money, but what people don't understand is that, guess what? About 2% of all the transactions made in the world in any given day are digital. So that money system, that new rainbow currency that's already been printed, it's just to make us old folks feel comfortable. That's all it is. The world is going to be moving into a digital currency. And I want to tell you what God shared with me about 4 years ago. Remember, for those who've been following me, I died at 68. My whole life has been dedicated to coming to this point where I could deliver a message that would make the complex simple, so that people would understand, so it would open their eyes, so that we could end the division that's been intentionally created between us. And so with that happening, here's what God did. He woke me up 4 years ago. He says, I want you to be able to participate in the transfer of wealth from the wicked to the righteous. And he said, I want you to go out and find out about something called XRP. So I did. I didn't even know what crypto was. And he came back to me and said, I'm going to give you an opportunity to invest in what will become the new world's reserve currency. No private citizen in the history of the world has ever had an opportunity to invest what was going to be the world's reserve currency. That has been reserved for the elite that control the world. So, folks, if you believe that the things that I said are in any way divined by God, which I tell you they are, and I believe that if you follow me long enough, you can see that, then basically I encourage you, this financial reset is in play right now. The currencies are going to revalue, silver is going to revalue, and we're going to go to a completely new commodity-backed system run by XRP, by XLM, and by some other what they call ISO 20222 compliant currencies. And you need to know the role that XRP is going to play. Here's what it does. It's going to allow you to take that gold coin that's $3,000, break it down to a finite number, to a penny, and be able to use it in commerce. And it's going to free up $172 trillion that are locked out of the economy right now, because the way the SWIFT system works, based on currencies, if you transfer money from, say, France to America or America to France, the banks on both ends have to hold money. They have to hold French francs and US dollars, and that money is kept out of the economy. It can't be used for anything. Well, with XRP and XLM and the other ISO 2022 compliance cryptos, what happens is we don't need currency to make those transactions. Those coins are used to make those transactions, and at a fraction of a cent, and fast. So basically, when you're using SWIFT, the cost is very high because multiple people touch it, and every middleman puts in a cost, and it can take 3 to 5 days to transfer funds. Here, what happens is $1 billion can probably be transferred for a fraction of a penny in 3 to 6 seconds, and it can be fractionalized from a boatload of oil to pennies worth of oil. And we can do what they call smart contracts that allow us to buy real estate. Just one of the things that just happened is that Fannie and Freddie, I used to be a real estate broker, I had my own small firm for a while. Basically, Fannie and Freddie just announced you can invest in real estate in what? Crypto. You need to understand this is the new medium of exchange, gold-backed, commodity-backed systems that are disseminated to the world through cryptocurrencies that can be fractionalized into the smallest possible component. And this is going to be the wealth of the world. This is the transfer of wealth. I'm going to do some other presentations on this, but this is kind of the granddaddy. I'm going to go to the next slide now, and I'm going to break it down and reverse it. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to tell you, once we get on this new system, the control mechanisms that they use to control us are gone. They can't do it anymore, period. It's gone. We begin to get our freedom. So I'm going to look over the slides here, and I'm going to tell you what happens. Inflation, gone. Remember, it's a fiat currency. They can control, they can inflate it, they can deflate it. That's gone. They can have wage suppression. So what have we had for decades? We've had computers that have come in and robots that have come in, and productivity's gone up and 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 up. And with that, you would think that your salaries would go up and up and up and up and up. But no, in a debt-based system, your wages are controlled, wage suppression. So you basically keep at low salaries, but everything else goes up because of the inflation, because it's designed to create a slavery system to enslave you. And the stock market is manipulated. Look at what happened in 1929. They had the roaring 20s, and then one day everything crashed, and they had a terrific depression for 12 years. And then you go into 08 and they say, everything's okay. And then all of a sudden Lehman Brothers crashes, and we have a catastrophic 2008 financial collapse, and people by the millions lose their homes. All of this is going away. They can't control the boom bust cycles. The national and consumer debt is going to be under control because we're going to be making money, not losing money. We'll be paying down the debt, not having every single solitary day having that debt go up. And global conflicts will end because of what? We'll have relative parity between all the nations. So here's what's going to happen. As this reset happens, as we go from control by SWIFT and the central banking system to a system run by God's economy, by gold and silver and by these cryptocurrencies, here's what's going to happen. Every nation in the world will have a shift in their currencies. All the first world Western hegemony nations, their currencies are going to go down. But don't worry, the value of the currencies, once this is all settled, are actually going to be back to where they're worth $1 instead of, in our case, 93 cents. And what's going to happen to the third world countries, to Africa, to portions of India, to portions of China, etc. Basically, they are actually very, very wealthy nations. We have kept them in poverty by keeping them from building infrastructure and tapping into their natural resources. Africa is blooming. In the next 10 to 20 years, Africa is going to be one of the wealthiest continents in the entire world. And why? Because they have something that the world needs. They have rare earths, more rare earths than any place else in the world. So as we go to a commodity-backed system, it just so happens God had it all planned, and all these third world nations that we've held down are some of the wealthiest nations in the world. So their currency will rise, our currency will come down, we'll meet in the middle, we'll have that parity that creates what? The opportunity for peace and peace on earth, for mankind to understand one of the most important things that could ever be understood. If we harm ourselves, we harm another. We have to create a period of peace and treat everybody with respect and dignity. And when that happens, God ushers in what? His harvest of souls. And this whole thing that has kept us in this slavery, it's just been to mold us and to shape us and to bring us to the point that we could learn humility and that we could be willing to enter into partnerships with people that were fair and equitable. And what that's going to do is raise the spiritual level of the entire planet. That's how important this bill is. All right, let's go to this next slide, and we're going to see that we're digging deep, deep, deep into this, folks. So here's what happens. What do you do? I'm going to ask you a hypothetical question. I'm going to ask you I'm Donald Trump. I'm going to ask you to assume this role. So what do you do if you are facing inflation and a financial reset, and you're the leader of the free world? What do you do? You pass the great, big, beautiful bill. And what do you do? You say, I recognize that we are going into inflation or potentially hyperinflation as pressure is put upon us by BRICS, by a whole consortium of nations that are trying to de-dollarize the globe. The dollar is going down, down, down in value. And basically what's going to happen is inflation goes up as the dollar's value goes down. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to pass a big, beautiful bill that's going to give me all kinds of money, and I'm going to spend it as fast as I can before it's not worth anything. And I'm going to build highways and bridges and infrastructure and factories. And I'm going to create a foundation that will allow this economy to come back in lightning fast speed, stronger than ever. And then I'm going to help the rest of the world. That's what this bill is about, folks. This is a bill that says America is in trouble, and I, Donald J. Trump, have the life raft that's going to save it. And he's going to spend that money, but he's not going to waste it and squander it on useless wars. He's going to spend it on things that are going to make America the greatest nation in the world, the nation that God said of, that we are the nation of the hill, that shining light, and the nation that he used to basically go out and spread salvation around the entire world. And he's going to do it again. So here's what happens in this bill. Election reform. So what's he doing with election reform? He is basically changing the whole roles. He's saying the election roles are so stilted and dead, so many dead people and so many old people. We got to have all new election rules. So he's trying to put that together so that we walk in and we have to present an ID, and we're working off of election rules that are real, fair, and equitable. What else is he doing? Reciprocal trade. So basically saying not only is America going to have fair trade, but every nation in the world is going to have fair trade. And what's he doing next? International investment. So basically rebuild America, bring that money over here, build our factories, and at the same time, take a portion of what's coming from China, distribute it out through the world so that we have a logistics system that is spread out, that can't be controlled and can't be manipulated, and is bringing some of that wealth to every nation in the world. What else is he doing? Infrastructure. We've been held down by the $93 trillion new Green Deal and all the new green lies, and he's going to strip those regulations out, and he's going to build factories. But here's what he's going to do with it. We're going to build factories, and we're going to have free energy that's not polluting the environment. And where we do have pollution, we'll have them. We have the technology to clean it. It's just that it's been too expensive in the past. So with the free energy technologies, or virtually free energy technologies, we'll be able to scrub those pollutants out of the world, and the world's going to change in ways you can't even believe it. Manufacturing and GP in the United States is going to go up. We're going to get our manufacturing back. Let's take Brazil. They're part of BRICS. So you might think, well, they're against the United States. No, they're against being controlled by the dollar and by manufacturing. And they say, well, our manufacturing has been gutted by China. So they're going to get their manufacturing back, and it's going to happen all around the world. Equity and peace and prosperity is going to brain forward across the entire world. Energy independence, we're all going to have it, and that's going to change the cost of everything we buy. Tax cuts are going to come because we're going to pay down the national debt, and we're going to get to a point that we get out from under the Fed. And this isn't the first time it's happened. It happened basically. We were fighting the Revolutionary War to get out from under the Central Bank of England, and we won. And for a short time, a few years, we were out from under the Central Bank of England, but we went bankrupt because of the war. And then we were right back under in the War of 1812. And we said, we're not going to renew that charter. We fought that war. We retained our independence, but we're back under a charter. And then under Andrew Jackson, he got us out of that charter. And then we come along with Wilson in 1913, who puts us back under that system of slavery. And what happened with Kennedy? Kennedy was opposing all the powers of the world, which is what Trump is doing now. But Trump learned from what happened with Kennedy. Kennedy was assassinated, and it's very simple, folks. Don't listen to their lies. Here's why. Kennedy was assassinated because he had taken constructive action to issue, not just talk about, but issue silver certificates and shut down the Fed. He was coming against the military-industrial complex because he said, I'm not sending boots on the ground to China. And he was coming against the CIA and the FBI because he knew that they were against America. They were controlled by the global financial elite, so they had to kill him. But that was the genesis of the very system we're seeing now, where when we make this total switch, we're going to go to a completely new economic system. And this big, beautiful deal sets the foundation for us to move to something called Nasara and Gasara. So basically, we're going to get our borders back. Trump is basically he's closed that border tighter than tight, and he's going to take the entitlements away from the people. That's what's part of that Medicare plan that they're rallying against. And what that's going to do, it's going to encourage self-deportation. If the people can't get a job, if they can't get a driver's license, if they can't send their kids to our schools, they'll just leave and they'll go back. And then Nasara is going to kick in and give them the ability to have their individual nations have peace and prosperity. Take a few years, but everything's going to settle down. And it all depends on what Trump's doing in this administration and ties to this big, beautiful bill. Military readiness. So what Trump is doing is not going out and fighting perpetual wars. It's peace through strength. He basically says, when I draw a red line, it's a red line. If I say I'm going to bomb the nuclear power sites, I'm going to bomb the nuclear power sites. And that is going to bring peace and eventually will lead to various steps in and de-arming the world, because what we're going to have are agreements that says it's a military stand down, because we can't have peace and prosperity in the world if we're going to be fighting wars all the time. And NATO has already agreed to pay what? 5%. So there's 3% of the GDP of every nation that's in NATO that's going to be coming to America. That's more money coming into the coffers of America to pay down our debt. Do you see all the layers that he's put into this? And then the education system is already changing. He's already taken this out from the federal education department and giving power back to the local governments and power back to the families. All of these things are happening because of two things. Well, three, because first of all, God planned it, because God is enabling it, because he's using Donald Trump, because we're learning from the things that happened in the past, and we have an ingenious plan to basically take away the money of the global financial elite, which is their power, and put it in the hands of the people and basically bring peace and prosperity to the world. Whew! Finally, folks, we're about to the end. Let's go to the next slide. It is Humpty Dumpty. And I got another question to ask you. What happens? Ask yourself this in your heart. What happens if we don't do what Donald Trump is proposing? What happens if we don't listen to the Lord and do what he's proposing? I'm going to tell you right now what's going to happen. We're going to have the greatest financial collapse you could ever imagine in the face of the world, and we're going to move into absolute slavery. We're not going to have a soft collapse by the greatest financial rebound you could ever see. And then the global elite, once they have control of everything, are going to do exactly what they've been doing in front of us. They're going to poison our food. They're going to sterilize us. They're going to kill us any way they can, because their overall master plan is to regreen the planet, is to kill 7 billion of us, and to basically have their version of utopia, which is a version where most of us are gone, where genocide has been committed. So, folks, we are truly at a tipping point, a point in history where the whole future of the world and the planet rests on us rallying behind what is being done in America today and around the world to take power away from the global financial elite and give it to we, the people. So let's go to this last slide. Is a gift from God to you. I'm doing this presentation because, like, God came to me and said, you want to participate? I want you to participate in the transfer of wealth from the wicked to the righteous. So he told me about XRP and cryptocurrencies. But now these currencies all around the world are going to reset. And then next week, I'm going to do a show that's going to tell you it's not pie in the sky. It's real. It's tangible. It's based on a set of criteria that are being executed. Tick, 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 tick. All right. Time. You qualify, you can have your currencies revalued. So one of the ones that's going to revalue very quickly, and I'm pointing this one out, the dinar is going to revalue, the dong is going to revalue, the sim is going to revalue, the bolivar is going to revalue, etc. Because all the nations that are the third world nations, their currencies are going to revalue. Ours are going to revalue down, theirs are going to revalue up. But I chose this one for today because God is saying to me, I want all my children to benefit, not just the ones that have money now, but I want all of my children. So he's leaving the 90 and he's 99 and he's going to the 1. And maybe you're the one out there that needs to hear this message. So here's what he's been showing me. With this reevaluation, based upon the criteria that are tangible, that are happening in Vietnam, their currency is going to revalue. And right now, you can buy $1 million in dong. That's two $500,000 bills. And if you buy it at a bank, I pay $60. If you buy it in a credit union, look over to the far left in the center. It's telling you where you can go. So you can buy it at a currency exchange, but you'll pay a premium. If you're lucky enough to find a local bank, you'll buy it at probably the same price I buy it for. And then there's a service charge for making the transaction. I pay $7. So in my case, my total cost is $67. And then if you can't find it, we're to buy it in either of those two places. You can buy it on, take this down, capital X, changeofamerica.com. And I want to focus you on something right here. I don't do commercials. I don't have sponsors. I right now don't even have a donate button on my website, but I'm going to put one because I've been getting people that are sending me messages. I believe in what you're doing and I want to donate, and there's no place to donate. So we just decided we're going to put a donate button, but we're not going to ask you to donate. If you decide you want to because you want to help us get this message out, fine, we're there, but we're not going to promote it and ask you. So I want you to pay attention to what I'm about to say. All the other people that are telling you about this and that, I'm not a financial analyst. I only understand things at the high level. God told me that I'm going to have you be like a giant umbrella that sits over everything, where you know a little bit about everything, and you're smart enough to, with my help, to be able to turn the complex into the simple and tell people things that they need to know that can totally, completely, another change their lives, open their eyes, and bring the world together. So in this case, I want you to understand, I don't make a dime. If you go to a currency exchange, I don't care. A bank, I don't change. I don't care if you go to Exchange of America. I don't make any money. This is something God is telling me to tell you, so that if you're one of those 1% that don't have a lot of money to invest, you might be able to look at this equation and say, well, now look at this scale. There's $60 is going to buy me $1 million worth of dong. That's about a gas tank full of gas. And when it revalues, the number that's floating around most frequently is $2. So that might net me $2 million. So on the scale of a risk to reward ratio, that's nothing. I mean, in the grand scheme of things, $60 means nothing to almost anybody, but $2 million does. And then what's going to happen is these currencies are not all going to meet the requirement for being reset at the same time. So if you make some money off the dong, which is about the cheapest investment you can make now in terms of currency revaluations, when the next basket comes, you can take some of that money and invest in the next currency to be revalued. So let me walk you through, because I think people are skeptical that this kind of multiplication could happen. But in God's kingdom, any form of multiplication that can happen. So here's the bottom line of the economy of Vietnam. Vietnam sets close to China, and as manufacturing is leaving China, they are one of the greatest recipients in receiving that manufacturing. They're close to them geographically, so there's not any great cost involved in transit, and they are culturally very similar. And guess what happens? They have a developed infrastructure that's been developed since the Vietnam War. They have a credible manufacturing with some really pretty sophisticated technology. They can manufacture any of the low-end and mid-end products, and even some of the high-end products. They have a growing economy that's growing currently at 6% GDP and accelerating because of all the new businesses coming to them as factories leave China. They don't currently have any volatility in their country in terms of an ongoing war, and they have lots of gold, and they have lots of minerals, and they have lots of natural resources because of the climate that they're in. And so by all measures, they have a very vibrant domestic market, and they have a growing and vibrant international market. So they meet every single solitary criteria for why their currency should be be increased, and there's no reason to hold them down. And now let's look at the flip side of what most people don't see. Donald Trump's tariffs or basically said to the first world countries, you're ripping us off. We're paying twice as much in tariffs as you. Let's just make it an even playing field. But what he did when he went to the third world countries is he wanted to trigger the opposite. So to give you an example, Africa was not paying tariffs to the United States on most goods. So he imposed tariffs. So what did that do? Something just changed that God wanted to change. Africa got together and just announced it's going to take some time, but we're going to dissolve our borders. It's going to be like the United States. You can cross from one country to the other, and you won't have to go through all of that rigmarole. So they're going to form what I will call the United States of Africa. And then what else did they do? They said, we realize what the future is, and we're geared up, and we have a good education system, and Africa is not what people think. They've got some of the most beautiful cities in the world. Yes, their rural areas are trapped and they don't have water and roads, but they'll take care of that. But basically what's happening in Africa is going to be the fastest growing nation in our continent in the world, because they'll be able to take advantage of all of those emerging technologies, because they won't have to have these huge expensive grids. They'll, just like they went from the cell phone to the cell phone and skip landlines. So basically Africa is going to have a metamorphosis that's happening around the world, and it's going to happen in all these third world countries, which Vietnam is sort of technically one of those, even though it's a very growing dynamic economy. So now what happened in Africa? The Africans said, we're not going to pay you tariffs. Well, instead, we're going to go around you, and we're going to have the United States of America. We're going to develop a domestic market. They pooled their gold, and they said, we're going to have sovereign currency, so commodity-backed currency. That's what the rest of the world is going to do. So the tariffs that Trump did had two sides to that coin. One side was to control and balance the first world countries, and the other side was to bring balance and parity to the third world countries. Everything meets in the middle, and peace and prosperity happen. So back to Vietnam, if you're one of those countries that currencies are grossly held down, what does that do? That means that you can participate in international trade with an absolutely huge advantage, because your stuff costs pennies on the dollar. And so that has to be fixed too, because everything has to move to parity. So can you see what Trump's doing, what the bill is doing, the groundwork that's being laid to break the chains of slavery that are on each and every one of us? So basically, he's going to do things for the first world countries, for the third world countries, and they're all going to come together and meet in the middle. And what we're experiencing is something that, unless you're a historian like me, you don't even see it coming. Following World War II, something happened called Bretton Woods. And what Bretton Woods was the world was in chaos. All the manufacturing of Europe was destroyed, and the nations and the currencies of the world were unstable. And they came together and said, America, you didn't get bombed. You have gold, you have silver, you have manufacturing. Will you be the world's reserve currency? Well, we abused that. We printed money to ad nauseum, causing inflation. And then we used our system to basically impose sanctions on countries like Russia and China and Iran. And that's where we have to go from globalization to deglobalization, dollarization to de-dollarization, and everything becomes fair and equitable. And so what's happening that is tied to this big, beautiful bill is, without calling it Bretton Woods 2, we're experiencing a new Bretton Woods. We're saying we have to have economic stability. We have to bring all the nations together, and they all have to have currencies that are relatively equal in value, measured upon the true assets that nation has: lack of debt, growing GDP, manufacturing capability. Vietnam, for example, has one of the youngest populations in the world, meaning it's got people to man their factories. It has a lower labor cost than China. So if you look at Vietnam and you listen to what I've told you, how can you possibly say that it's the reevaluation of its currency is not justified? The same thing has happened in the dinar. The only reason I didn't choose it to showcase is because it cost a lot more to buy it, because people have been buying it for a long time. So of the two, the dinar is the higher, the dong is the cheaper. And when we talk about metals, we'll talk about gold, we'll talk about silver, and we'll tell you why silver is the better investment. But remember, I'm not a broker. I don't make any money. I don't make my living off of this. This is not financial advice. This is the leading of the Lord. And I want you to take this to the Lord. And then I want you to do what I did. Go find out what XRP is, find out what XLM is, find out why silver is the better play than gold, find out the validity of everything I've told you, and then you do whatever you want to do. What I've told you is what I'm doing, but I'm not a financial advisor. I'm not a multimillionaire. That's not my role in life. I'm not here to make money. I'm here to open people's eyes. I'm here to bring people to the Lord. I'm here to set that foundation as much as I can be a part of it, to bring peace and prosperity and equity to every person on this planet, and to break the chains of slavery. And so with that, you take this to the Lord and you decide what you want to do. And that takes us to the very, very last thing here. And now this is the one place where I might make a little money, just to be honest with you. God has given me some books, and this book is currently on the market. And here's why this is the time that you need to buy it, because you need to understand all the stuff that we've been talking about, because we're going to have some unbelievable changes happening in the world, and we need to avoid a civil war when this comes down. And so you need to understand what a republic is, and your role in maintaining that republic. And that knowledge you need is in this book. It tells you all the history of America. It tells you what made America great, why we're considered to be that light on the hill that is the guiding influence for the world, why we were chosen to basically spread the gospel around the world, what makes America great, why are we under covenant with God, how we lost it by being brainwashed, how we're now getting it back because of the events that are happening now, and how we keep it. And then I should also announce that God's given me a second book. It's going to be out probably around middle to end of August. And it now is designed to do that same stuff, but to be able to put it into the schools. And then there'll be a third book. And that book is basically going to take us into an understanding of what God's purpose is for each and every one of you. But right now, we need an army of people to stand up and to say, hey, I know what's going on. I understand it. That person over there is not my enemy. That person over there is not my enemy. Let's look at them all and let's all say, we're all friends. Let's unite this nation. We need an army of people to stand together. You need to know the information that God gave me that's in this book, because this is go time. This is the time when each of you need to have your eyes open and your hearts open and be a part of restoring the world to peace and prosperity and bringing it back to God. So I encourage you to buy this book so you can join God's army. With that, that's all I got for right now. And the next time we'll dig deeper into these currencies, because I truly want everybody to understand the opportunities that God has brought before us. So you see my website down there, and you can go there and find out more. This book was only available on Amazon. So let me tell you a story about that. This book, when it was written, I submitted it to every major publisher in the country. Every one of them turned me down. And then I got a call from Harrison House, who had turned me down. And what happened is a lady on the other side said, Mr. Ballard, did you get that book published? And I took a breath, and she said, don't answer. You didn't get it published. You'll never get it published because you told too much of the truth. I read it. I'm an editor for Harrison House. It's a fantastic book. And basically, nobody's going to publish it, but I have a small chain of bookstores. God tells me I have to publish it for you. God's hand moving along to take the message that he's given me and to get it out there. And then guess what happened? I get the new book and we're getting it published, and the publisher calls me, now a legitimate publisher, and says, Mr. Ballard, she says, I read your book, your first book, it's fantastic. But she says, you're not selling anywhere near the number of books you'd be selling. And she says, you want to know why? And I said, sure, I want to know why. He says, because you'll never guess what they did to you. She said, you have a book that's full of truth, that's full of history, that's full of everything that the people need to know to open their eyes. And where did they put you? In fiction. So they said, they aren't finding you. You're invisible. So we just got that change, and hopefully book sales are going to go up, but everything is in God's divine time. Now's the time you need to buy that book, not 6 months before, not a year before. Basically, God told me my message would be delivered at the last minute, because I would come out with such fire, such conviction, such truth to open people's eyes, that it had to be appointed for exactly God's time. And that time is now, because America is on the brink of financial collapse, but restoration is at the door. So I encourage you, please join the army of God. I'm not asking you to go out and fight a war. I'm asking you to buy a book, to read it, discuss it with your friends, to pass it on to whoever you choose to pass it on to. Do not put it in a book chore, but basically join the army of God and be part of those people who help restore peace and prosperity to not only America, but to the entire world. With that, be blessed. Go do your homework. Don't do anything about any of those currencies based on anything I say. You go do your own homework, and I think you'll find that God has been talking to me and through me talking to you. Amen, and God bless. See you next time.